First, let's head back to Liliesleaf Farm, where, of course, my colleague Gareth Edwards is standing by to really get into this conversation around what's the reality of the heritage site. Gareth, I mean, as we spoke about it before, if you can hear me, it seems that is the reality. It is shutting down, but the question is why, and every South African should be caring about this question because it does affect each and every South African.
It really does, Tomelo. Good morning again. Once again, welcome back to Liliesleaf Farm. We've moved from outside to inside now. We just saw the thatched cottage. We saw an outside view of Nelson Mandela's room as well when he was staying here on the farm. And of course, all of the other big names that we all associate with the liberation movement, the struggle against apartheid. Much of it began at this farm, a safe haven, if you will, some even calling it the headquarters of the movement to fight apartheid and free our country and move us into a stage of democracy, which to this day we are still celebrating. So while I sit here, I ask you to cast your mind all the way back to the 1960s. Imagine it's 1961 up to 1963, there or thereabouts. Now, I'm going to speak to the CEO, Nicholas Wolp, in just a moment. But for those who've never been to Liliesleaf Farm, I came here many years ago. I was still in primary school, and I was a much younger version of myself, a much thinner version of myself as well, I might add. But they've changed it so much over the years as well. And I know we do have a shot of this. It's this one of the interactive screens here at the museum, and I absolutely loved playing with this. My team, when we arrived this morning, I ran straight to this because it's all touchscreen and very fancy. This one over here, Harold Wolpe is a well-known activist as well. I'll be speaking to the descendant of Harold Wolpe in just a few moments from now. Let me just lean across and get out of this particular screen. And then we keep going through all the big names. Ruth First, Dennis Goldberg, Arthur Goldrick, Jack Hodson, James Cantor. We can keep going. There's Ahmed Kathrada. There's Moses Kutane. And, of course, the one we all know, the one we all associate with Liliesleaf Farm as well, is Nelson Mandela. So this is why this conversation is so important this morning. Let me bring in now the CEO and executive of Liliesleaf. It's Mr. Nicholas Wolpe. Nicholas, morning to you. There's a lot to discuss. I mean, I walked around this morning and I was sad knowing I was coming here to talk to you about the closure, the permanent closure, the possible closure of the farm. What's happened? We need to talk money. We need to talk about that money. But what's the status as you and I sit here this morning?
Before I go into that, you made reference about 1961-63. What I'd like to just highlight is August 23rd was the 60th anniversary of the purchase of Liliesleaf. We're now in Heritage Month. October will be the 60th anniversary since Nelson moved onto the property, and then December will be the 60th anniversary of the formation of MK, and in 2002 the ANC declared that Liliesleaf was the birth of MK. But also, very interestingly, it's the 60th anniversary of Chief Luthuli receiving the Nobel Peace Prize, which also happened in December.
And that is what I think makes this such a sad moment. I mean, not just for South Africa, I'm sure for you personally as well. I mean, it's, when we talk about all this history, I was talking to Tomelo earlier in the show, and I put forward the comments, and I'm sure you might agree or disagree, tell me if you do, that at no point could we ever put a cost, could we quantify the history and the legacy of our country, but it seems to have come down to this number of 8.1 million rand. Now, depending on which statements we read from the Department of Arts and Culture, from Nathi Mthethwa, and the statement released by yourself, it seems there's a big miscommunication as to what's happened. So we're going to unpack the numbers now, but as we sit here today, what is the position of you and what is the position of Liliesleaf?
So the position of Liliesleaf is that we do not have the operational funds to pay for the staff to come into work. Therefore, if we do not have the funds to pay the staff to come to work, we cannot expect them to come to work and work for nothing. We cannot open Liliesleaf if there's no staff here. Therefore, the decision to close Liliesleaf was not something that I took. It was something that was forced upon me because, as I've said, I can't say to the staff, come to work, oh, and by the way, you're not going to get paid, because they wouldn't come to work, and it would be justifiable for them to say they're not coming to work. So I think that's important. It wasn't a decision that was taken. It was a decision that I was left with no option or alternative. And I use the word indefinitely because it implies that we could reopen tomorrow morning if we found the funding, or we could reopen in 6 months if we found the funding, or in a year if we found the funding.
So it could reopen again at any point when it comes back to, we just need the money to come in order to do this. So let's then talk about this claimed unaccounted, in inverted commas, 8.1 million rand that's been provided. Because my understanding of this, and give me your view on this, 8.1 million rand has been provided for the running of this, but the allegation is it's been unaccounted for, and therefore there's no more funding coming in as a result of that mismanagement. Is that too harsh a word? Of that 8.1 million rand. So what happened to the 8 million?
I think let's put it into context. I think it's important, and I've been saying this constantly throughout all my interviews. In 2015, Liliesleaf signed an MOU with the department for 9 million rand to undertake a project. So if you were to say to me, did you spend that money on the project? And my answer will be categorically no. However, in saying that, what you need to understand is that there was always an understanding that that money would never be used for projects. It would be used for operational expenditure. And it is captured in the minutes of trustees' meetings. In fact, at one of the meetings on June 5th, 2015, I raised the concern with the trustees, and I said, you know what, this is very concerning, that we have been compelled to sign an MOU for a project when the money was always earmarked and understood that it would be used for operational funding. And the trustees said we must make sure that the department understands that this money is not for project funding, but for operational funding to keep the site open.
And is that where it started to go a bit left? Because we're talking about operational money, we're also talking about projects. So where did we start losing each other?
Well, I wouldn't say we lost each other, because we made it clear to them that we would be spending it on operational expenses. So, based upon the MOU, it was stated that I needed to submit a report in order to secure the final balance. That report was submitted in December 2015. So I submitted a financial report and a narrative. The department came back to me and said, the financial report and narrative do not speak to the MOU. And I said, of course it wouldn't speak to the MOU, because this was always what our understanding and what was discussed and how the funds would be spent.
Okay, so what we've got is a situation where money was handed over. It was meant to be, the intent from the department was it would be used for projects. It was actually used for operational costs. So there's no money missing.
No.
8.1 million rand hasn't vanished.
And has been accounted for, and the report was submitted. And they said, in that conversation I had with them back in 2015, they said, you must, in order to get the balance of the money, you need to submit a report that speaks to the MOU. And I was adamant that I was not going to do that, because for two reasons. A, it would be a lie to write a report and prepare a financial report about money that wasn't spent on what that report stated. And secondly, it would discredit Liliesleaf, discredit me as the CEO, and perjure both Liliesleaf and myself. And I made it abundantly clear that that would not happen.
Have you and Nathi Mthethwa had a conversation since your statement came out?
No.
Why not?
Because he is talking directly with the trustees and engaging with the trustees, which is problematic, because over the years I have constantly indicated this when we have talked about it. But interestingly, it was never raised after that discussion. The next time that this matter was raised was last July, I should say, 4.5 years after the initial submission. and I had a meeting with the Deputy Director of Heritage and some of his officials, because prior to that meeting, I'd actually had a telephonic discussion with my chairman, Halima Motlanthe, and he said, go in and ask for a variant or condemnation. They said, no, you need to submit a report that speaks to the MEU. And again, I reiterated that I was not prepared to do it. And if I may just add slightly, there are a lot of inaccuracies in the press release issued by Ngati and Tetwell. And one which stands out in particular is the one relating to where he says, Liliesleaf has received 70 million over 13 years. Now, in 2016, I received from him, in November 2016, I received a narrative report from him, which said Liliesleaf had received from the Department of Arts and Culture 70,954,000. So I'll be interested to know what happened to that 954. But if I can just finish. We then undertook an audit with Grant Thornton to check whether those figures were correct. Their audit showed that we had only received 61,540,000.
I need to end the conversation in like 20 seconds. Just help me understand. As you sit here today, we are closed for the moment. When are we going to try and get this open? What do you need? Very quickly.
Well, the minister has said that a forensic audit had to be conducted. And it has been conducted, which has been submitted to the trustees, and apparently, from what I have been told by third-party sources, that the trustees are going to hold a press conference on Monday regarding that forensic audit. And based upon that, should it satisfy the minister, I again have been told that apparently he has said that there is 20 million rand ready to come to Liliesleaf, then that money will flow, and that should enable us to reopen and to continue the important work and not focus on things like this while a place of such significance is suffering.
And hopefully this is what's going to happen, so we wait for this press conference on Monday. Nicholas Wolpe, I appreciate your time this morning. The founder and chief executive of Liliesleaf, descendant as well of one of the Rivonia accused, Harold Wolpe. It will be a terrible shame if we were to lose Liliesleaf, but it seems there may be a glimmer of hope come this Monday. We await this press conference. My thanks to Nicholas. Tamela, let's come back to you. In the studio, we're back here again later in the morning at Liliesleaf.